Welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next. Well, I am super excited. We have a really awesome guest today, Todd, and he's no stranger to marketing, at least I would hope. He's the Chief Experience Officer at the American Medical Association. So do you want to just quickly, briefly introduce yourself, Todd, before we get going?
Absolutely. I've been the Chief Experience Officer at the AMA for 7 years now. My background in consumer products marketing, advertising, before I hopped into the digital media world, digital commerce, and landed up here. So I'm in charge of membership and marketing for the enterprise, including all our digital publishing and our customer service operations as well.
Well, man, this is great. I'm really glad to have you on. And I know we were talking backstage a little bit before we got going on, and the word AOL came up. So he's back in the almost analog days of digital. So this is awesome.
You got floppy disks, things like that.
Floppy disk and something like that. I can't do it perfect. Before we get going, we're going to just play a quick game. We're just going to throw out some words, phrases, and you just kind of help our audience kind of as a reset, kind of restart. Here's one. Customer-centric culture. What is that? How could we know that?
If you truly understand who your target audience is based on data that is predictive of what they're going to do next.
Cool. All right, next, digital transformation.
Don't say it. That's my first piece of advice. Just do all the things on digital platforms that allow your customers and the people in your organization to do their jobs better and grow.
Awesome. Data-driven insights, and I won't say it.
You can say data-driven insights. I really like that. And I think that's one of the points as we'll talk about in my book. A lot of people just make stuff up, and there's no excuse for that in today's environment. You've got so much data to analyze and look for patterns and understand how to make decisions based on what is actually occurring, not what you think is happening.
Cool. I like this next one. It sounds really cool. Omnichannel strategy.
Yes, it turns out that people use a lot of different strategies, both in the real world and the digital world. And the job for someone like me, a CXO, or really for anybody in marketing these days, is to make sure your communication and your operations are indifferent to what channel someone's accessing you through. They expect
and I guess billboards still have place, right?
Don't get me started on that. If you drive down the Dan Ryan, as they say here in Chicago, there's nothing that makes me more worked up than billboard advertising, because it is so not digital, not because of the format, but because of the messaging that's in it. It's not working with the other channels, and that's what it should be doing.
Cool. And what about like car advertising? I know that was cool. Like in 1999, 2000, I think people were renting cars, or I'm sure they still have that in high traffic.
People are renting cars? Yes, they are. And did you know, and you probably don't, that I worked on the Oldsmobile account for about 3 years of my life. And so I'm thoroughly familiar with car marketing. And, here's the one thing I just advise everyone. No one listens to all the words in the commercials, and you can only see so much sheet metal. And it's, again, back to the, is there an idea here that connects with people?
All right. Customer feedback and engagement.
This is something that should be 24/7, and it should be coming not only through your human interactions, but also your digital monitoring systems.
Innovation. God, that word means everything and nothing. Innovation and adaptability.
Again, 100%. I just talked to my team. I have like a funny little rule on my team. You've got to be constantly monitoring the metrics. And when you see something going south, the first thing everybody needs to do is hit the alarm, figure out what's going on. And then, as I say, use the right word, make stuff up. That's why we're in marketing, to fix it.
Measuring success.
Number one, most important thing is to have very clear metrics that are appropriate to the goal in place, and everyone knows the metrics that make sense for the part of the team that they're on, so they add up to the growth thing at the end.
Cool. I love this. Well, just tell us real quick, Chief Experience Officer. I think it's like the word innovation as well. A lot of misunderstanding. Tell us like what this title is from your experience, where you are at AMA, kind of what your, North Star is. Just help us out as it relates to digital.
Yeah, that's it. You said it. You can't say what a chief experience officer does without saying experience. I looked it up, and this is one of the frustrating things about the role that motivated me to write a book about it, because I think there's a lot of room to really define what the chief experience officer does. In my world, experience is about orchestrating marketing, product, commerce, and service to acquire and retain customers. That's what it's about. My metric here, very clear: drive membership growth, drive improvement in people's sentiment about this brand, and improve the reach of all of our mission activities. So I'm all about growth. And I think a lot of what experience traditionally had been defined by or more in the perception categories. And a lot of those things that are measured in terms of how people feel about something, but they are intermediary measures and don't necessarily end up at the thing that everyone cares about at the end of the day, which is like, did we grow?
Mhm. I'm excited to have you on because healthcare is so complicated. It's like, who's the customer? Is it the patient? Is it the provider? Is it, and the provider could be a huge system, and then it could be the docs, the physicians, which you're probably know just a little about, right? So I think what would be really helpful to unpack is that, that kind of all the intersecting parties that you try to fulfill in order to get your vision and mission as the chief experience officer. I know that was a mouthful, but just kind of tell us that balance to serving your members and how that works with the AMA.
Yeah, for me, and again, just a reminder, I'm not a doctor and I'm the marketing person. So my focus very clearly in those areas. I'm surrounded by a board of doctors and our House of Delegates full of physicians. And my job really is to help them. I mean, if you're a physician these days, like, you have a calling to help people get better. And there is just so much in your way between you and that patient care. And so this organization and my team, all we are about is helping them eliminate those obstacles. So my primary focus is on physicians, residents, medical students. That's the close-in area of what we'll call qualified, to join the AMA. So that is where my focus is. But our mission areas, which are separate from what I do cover a wider range of things, like reducing hypertension, improving awareness of public health issues, promoting the health equity, and trying to end disparities in healthcare. So my role there is to work in tandem with all of these different kind of units of the AMA to get the word out and to get their work into the right hands. So it is a little bit of kind of there's like the commerce side that I work on, and then there's the media side, and the two of those things work very closely together.
So tell us how you got into this book. What was the process? What drove you to it?
So I'm saying my poster's not really catched it in the frame,
Yeah.
but for everyone out there, this is my book, The 10-Second Customer Journey. That is kind of my playbook that I've developed over the past 30 years for how to orchestrate modern day digital customer experience to drive growth. I've been kind of thinking about a lot of these concepts and writing about them a lot on LinkedIn for a long time. But last year, at the suggestion of my wife, I entered a publishing boot camp, and I wrote a book proposal, and I won a publishing deal. And that's how this got started. And I spent pretty much a year and a half of all of my weekends, I don't even remember what free time is like, writing the book. And it just released about 3 weeks ago. So still very new and very exciting.
I like the colors. Not that color's everything, but it looks like a good. How did you come about the color schema or brand essence? How did that come about?
Well, like a good marketing person, the first thing you do is you kind of look out there in the universe and say, what do you think is catching the attention of people? What makes you want to pick a book and buy it? And I think there are two things. One is the title, which is so important. The other is the book design. Does it look like something that's going to have value for you? Does it look professional? Is it going to catch my attention if it's on a bookshelf or if I'm scrolling on Amazon? And so I kind of gave my kind of parameters about what that looked like and what I do and did not like about things. And then I turned that over to the publisher and a design firm, and then started generating stuff. And I don't know if you can kind of see it, but it is,
Yeah, yeah, if you can,
there's a
please.
funnel, which is the purple, and then it does kind of land in the X, which is a very important concept about the book, which is putting the X in CXO, and that is marketing, product, commerce, and service, and how they come together. And that's how I defined CXO, which is that's that definition of experience sitting between the customer and the organization. And that's my job, is to bring those two things together.
So what is when you go through this as a expert in your journey, what just drives you bonkers with customer not right journey? Like what is it that where you see organizations getting it wrong?
Well, number one, first and foremost, is kind of skipping the process, which always starts with the customer and moving right into solving people's problems with product and product ideas. I'd say almost 100% of the time where things go awry is that the process is not followed properly like that. And so what you end up with is like products that are kind of in chase of, are chasing, solutions, chasing problems, kind of that whole thing. And then you end up with something that doesn't really work in the end, and you wasted a lot of time and effort. On the customer definition end, I just constantly see all over the place people not really doing that the right way. They make up personas, they make up behaviors. It's kind of wishful thinking, when really what has to happen is it's got to be data driven and capture, what I'll call behavioral and attitudinal elements and reactions to your product concepts, along with demographics at the end, to really begin to separate people and understand why it is that your ideas appeal to some and not to others. One of the key rules is like the best predictor of future behavior is current behavior. People need to remember that. It doesn't mean people won't try new things, but very hard to get people to change behavior. So start with the customer. That's what it's all about.
Are there any brands that you have just found really inspiring, or companies as you've gone through this journey over your career?
I'll tell you the one that I think a lot of right now, and it's kind of funny having come out of this past weekend where I was one of those millions of people that was waylaid by this CrowdStrike thing with travel. But I think United Airlines has it going on when it comes to customer experience and really leveraging that kind of omnichannel experience. And I think that it played out a lot over the weekend, even though I was facing a lot of obstacles to kind of getting the job done, which was getting home. And I did have to spend an extra day out in California, and not such a bad place to get stranded, but not where I wanted to be. But when you think about how their app works, the kinds of communications I get, how I can see the progress of my bags, and just kind of like the level of certainty I have around things that I used to have question marks. The fact that when I got my flight canceled, that they automatically rebooked me on something else, at least that I had that going. Just there's so many things that have brought me into their orbit, so to speak, that I do appreciate, because I know how hard it is to do on the other end.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I'm hearing empathy, kind of like empathizing with that customer on that journey, and so I think that's really great. I got my oil change at Valvoline, and I was like blown away before I even left. They really have, they enter it, and I was like, wow. It could be a little spammy and annoying, but it actually was pretty good. I was surprised by that. Wish I didn't have to get oil changes. I guess that I'm not a Tesla driver. But
it's funny
anyway,
that you would use that example, because I just had my oil change too. And I went to like the Toughies or whatever it is on the corner. It's not a fancy looking establishment, but they had it down. I scheduled it online. I didn't have to really talk to anybody. I went in there. I just basically dropped my keys off. They sent me everything back, put a check mark next to the things that you want fixed. Here's a printout of everything you didn't do. You're on your way. I mean, it's a funny disconnect between
Mhm.
like what I thought of this place and what the digital experience was going on with it.
Do you want to delve into a little bit, maybe the overview of your book or highlight a chapter? I wish I could have read it, but obviously that wasn't in the cards. It just was released 2 weeks ago. So anyway.
Absolutely. As I said before, the book is about a playbook for growing customers in the digital age and kind of keeping them. And what I did in the book was really lay out a playbook in kind of sequential order of the steps that you need to take to be able to do that. Part of this is defining customer experience for the digital age. If you go back to the history of customer experience, these were, in the days of Lou Carbone and, creating experience, and you're not buying a product, you're buying an experience. Like these were all about live and retail experience where you're having human interactions and sensory perceptions of all the stuff. As I say, like you can't smell a hamburger on a website. So how do we adapt the concept of customer experience for the digital age so that we can take somebody from maybe being exposed to your product or your brand for the first time and have it in your shopping cart and out the other door in 10 seconds. That's what the 10-second customer journey is all about. And in the middle of that process is reducing all the points of friction that might stop someone along the way in that just matter of like split seconds
Mhm.
that you've got these days to convince somebody to engage with and buy your product.
Mhm. I like what you're saying about the frictionless. I mean, there's that trust with, I think of Amazon immediately. I mean, so much of what I do is on Amazon because of that issue with putting my credit card, giving my credit card. What do you? I imagine there's a lot of UX design, even though you're not a product manager, you're not. But I imagine. Tell me a little bit about that journey as you're doing, what color or however how does that unfold in your actual design thinking, if there is?
Absolutely, and I was a product manager for 6 years. That's what I went to AOL, or in those days, America Online, is where I began my product management career. And one of the things I think that's so important to the world of experience and being a CXO is having done these things. And so I understand what the potential is. And while I may have lost some of the sharpness around actual product management processes, which have evolved since I was one, I do kind of understand the process. And so I think that UX design is so critical to accomplishing the tasks that you want to. And because of the way that we can test now, we just have so much of an advantage to understanding the dynamics that are going on. So I've been doing kind of like A/B testing and the like for 10 years or more now at this point. And a lot of it has to do with product design and workflows for the users. And what you learn is just like, it's so incredible. As long as everybody's focused on the end, which is growth, and how do you drive more of that, you're just working back basically through that process to understand where are the points of friction, how do I improve those. And so one of the big points of the book is creating a test and learn culture and applying it toward product development. That's just so important. So everybody from the team that's managing our website, they're constantly testing navigational changes. We just had one where like moving a topic from one to another drives 40% more conversion for that topic.
Mm.
I mean, it's like, wow, where did that come from?
Mhm.
We have other things where we were starting to employ kind of digital monitoring that tells us, basically there are a lot of people trying to do something on this page, but nothing is happening. And you got a problem there. And here's a heat map to show you what they're doing. And you can see basically like there's a call to action button that's on a picture, but only that button is active and people are clicking all over the picture and it won't load. And so you can go fix that.
Mhm.
Whereas like in the old days, you might have ever known that
Mhm.
or never fixed it and just really frustrated and lost a lot of people from the process. So this is particularly important in commerce flows. And so we spend a lot of time and energy perfecting, that kind of join renew process. And I tell a story in the book that was inspired by one of the co-founders of Stripe. And his advice, like, of all the things you could do to decrease friction, was fix your checkout page. So big advice from somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I remember hearing like a little bit of the story with eBay and PayPal and however just the network effect too with that. And I'm probably not articulating as well, but just how essential that was to making the whole thing work. And then it's sort of the same thing with Zoom, that if everyone needs that, then that growth. Do you have any sort of stories about growing through referrals, that kind of stuff, as part of the customer journey, how customers are the delight, or whatever we use? Maybe if you want to share anything about that.
I would just say, just from the biggest change from when I first started, it became very clear that people just did not know the work that we were doing. And when, you might run into somebody that was like, oh, I don't like the AMA or whatever it was. And then you would get into talking with them and they would be like, you should be working on this and this and this. And I'm like, well, we're doing this and we're working on this, and this is what happened and why it happened, because of the work that we were doing. And then you would just see a complete turnaround. So I said to the folks on my team, like, I had literally an experience like that, and it took about 20 minutes to explain that and get somebody kind of on a much better path. And I said, we need to take that concept of that 20-minute discussion and have that at scale with everybody. And so it doesn't have to be a 20-minute sit down with somebody at one time. You're never going to get that, right? But it can be 20 minutes over the course of a year, in little chunks of 30 seconds and a minute and 10 seconds, or you name it, because I'm trying to have a network effect, literally, like, to build the network of people who understand the work we're doing and why it's so important to be part of it.
Yeah. So how do you do that as a leader, like to bring that, I guess you're at the hub, where healthcare hub Chicago, at least probably globally and US based, but I'm sure a lot of your team is remote. How do you do that today as a leader?
I'm going to tell you, I'm very grateful that I started here in 2017, and I had a couple years under my belt with my team before the pandemic happened, and we all got dispersed. And so I think that's pretty important. And many of us are back in the office, at least for several days a week, which I think also is very important. But the principles of it are things that we were working on and getting implemented. One of the other concepts I kind of talk about in the book is the success storytelling platform. And thankfully, we were in process of having kind of built that out. And so, one of the first S's, home base, is your site. And so we had made major kind of changes to the website and its role as a kind of a media platform for the organization before everything kind of went down, so to speak. And that was so important to have in place, because as we shifted into the pandemic, the role of this organization and how it served physicians and patients, it rested so heavily on our ability to communicate digitally. So thank goodness, like, we had built that platform out, and we had built out our social channels and our streaming channels. So we understood, and subscriptions, these are all S's that are a part of that success model, that those were in place. Strangely, we discovered like a whole new talent, I think, of the organization in the pandemic, which was around video production capability. And with the challenges that, of course, producing that remotely, but things that we launched in the middle of the pandemic, like the AMA update, which is our daily video cast and podcast, we launched in response to like getting the word out for how we were helping physicians in the pandemic, getting the issues out there on the table and raising visibility of what they needed. That started then. And, 3 years later, we now have a studio in our building. But for, the beginning, it was like super scrappy. I'm in my bedroom, like next to my bed. I mean, it's amazing what you can do in those circumstances when it's really necessary. One of my favorite things I think we've ever done is, like, in that first year of the pandemic, Of course, none of the medical students were having their graduations because they were all canceled. And we got word that they would love some kind of form of recognition. And I thought to myself, well, why don't we go big? And we created the medical school tribute, the class of 2020. And we had a huge lineup of all of the leading physicians in the United States and every actor who has ever played a physician on television, including 5 Oscar winners. And so I'm just telling you, if you didn't see this, it's worth going back and checking it out. So a lot of fun.
I love what you're talking about storytelling. It's like we are so it's like in our DNA as people, like to connect with brands and however big. And I know there's I see a lot of the on social where there's whatever residency program you get in. I don't know if that's affiliated with the AMA, but I see a lot of that as well. That seems to be an effective way to get shout outs from doctors that are got accepted. I imagine it's
You match?
yeah, thank you. I should even
Yeah.
know where it is. That I mean, I'm not yeah, sorry. You know, it's just like you don't remember the words, but you remember the
Yes.
experience, right? So just the point, right?
That's absolutely true. And that's, that's part of like how we help students right now is prepare them for match. And so we have like a whole set of, programs to be able to help them do that. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I think you have an exciting thing to nothing against the AMA, but you know, a lot of times these trade associations, you know, get such a bad rap for being stale, boring, membership driven. And I think it's really cool how you, obviously, by your excitement, what you've been sharing, you're really, it's the vitality trying to keep these things real and fresh and relevant. And that to me is so hard in this day of age. I mean, that's why you have written what you've written and doing what you're doing. And tell me what you're, I mean, what are you excited about going forward with all your work, how you can apply it with the AMA going forward, 2024, the rest, and 2025?
It's funny that what you just said. I mean, because I think about it a lot, and people are pretty amazed. Like when they talk to me, how can you still be so excited 7 years into something? I truly am. I love it so much, and I didn't come here because of like the mission aspect. I came here initially because it was so closely related to the work that I was doing in such a much bigger platform. But over the course of time, like it really does make a connection to be able to help people who do things like I could never do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does, it tends to make you feel pretty good on a day-to-day basis to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what like, I'll say like, we're at a 20-year high
Mm-hmm.
for membership.
Wow.
And so that's against the trend
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of association. And the reason is because we have really embodied that culture of innovation and growth and being customer centric. And we've got members, we've got customers on other things, and then it's truly putting them first. And what's amazing to me and amazing to my team is it's like, no matter how long you've been at something, there's always something new to do and some new innovation, a better way to do it that turns things around or generates growth from a place that you didn't know. And a lot of that comes with just having goals and everybody just being on board to do them. So we're constantly finding new ways to serve and new things to do. And we've got so many great programs being built here. I think the most exciting thing is just the integration of marketing, our digital platforms, and our mission operations. That's taken things to a new level rather than them kind of being thought of as separate.
Mm-hmm. Well, where do we go? We have we're about halfway through our conversation. I feel like everything I gave you, I've gone unscripted. So people that come on this, I always try to be as fair as I can. I'm trying to learn. I mean, that's my wiring, intrinsically trying to learn and understand. And And so usually it comes from just a dialogue, So, but I want to do fair and justice to us, talking before you coming on, and don't let me get too distracted. So if there's anything I'm leaving off, please help me, redirect me, please.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I know we all talk about AI, and so maybe I'll just throw that out there. Is AI is there a chapter or a little bit on the book? I know data, you could use it with data, getting insights like you've mentioned, but is there anything specific you want to highlight with AI?
Yeah, I think, it's so funny because I'm like writing this book last year, and then all this like stuff with AI and generative AI is exploding. And I'm like, oh my God, like, is the stuff that I'm going to write here just going to be outdated by the time it comes out? So one of the things I talk a lot about is the storytelling platform and the use of content to drive audience. And I mean, I'll tell you, I'm a longtime digital media executive, and content generation, developing organic traffic, using search, SEO, like that's in jeopardy right now. And so it really crystallized for me because I don't know what I was watching. I think I was watching like Anybody But You or something like that, and I'm like, are koalas dangerous? And I like type, I type in that into like Google, and what do I get? I get the AI generated answer, and it's like basically answers everything. I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the story right now. And yeah, it's a lot easier for me, but it doesn't do much good for all the people that spent all the time and energy creating that content. It's certainly not going to drive them to your site to find out more. And so that's something I worry about right now in terms of like broadly in terms of marketing is like, how does AI affect the storytelling platform and marketing and growth from here? So that's a big part of this. I also talk about just technology in general and what the role is of a person like a senior executive in this point, because like you're not in the trenches, so to speak. You're not programming anymore. You're not actually kind of physically speccing things out, and so you can get a little bit of distance from things. What is the role of somebody like me? And I kind of put like a 5A model in place, of which I'll talk a little bit about, automation and augment and analyze and act. These are the things you just have to adapt to wave after wave of technological innovation. Learn as much as you can from it and make sure you're experimenting with the right kinds of things in a safe and responsible way, and then learn from those and put them into place. I've seen a lot of different technology introductions over the course of my 35 plus year career. And so I think I probably have, more perspective than some about kind of this. We're just really at the beginning, and it's like no need to be afraid, but just figure out what, it's one more wave. What can I do with this to make things better for the people out there and the people in the organization?
I like how you bring up a really legitimate, you're not alarmist, but you're bringing up a concerted, responsive effort in this day of age. I also am hearing a little bit of concern. You didn't mention it, but just about jobs. I don't want to say job security, but like, what does that look like for our working, knowledge workers? I feel like there needs to be more conversation in that. And I'm not trying to say whether you're diehard Republican or Democrat or ultra capitalist or ultra socialist, but I just feel like we need to have more thoughtful conversations. I know this is outside of this topic, but I feel like I'm not hearing enough of that. And I feel like there's so much big tech, the 7, whatever they call them every day, they just change it. And there was a big drop the other day with the NASDAQ. Anyway, I'm sure people, who knows why, but NVIDIA has so much of that in the S&P 500. I think it would be nice to have a little more of a, intelligent conversations, how we can for the future,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't know what that looks like, but it needs to have a multifaceted, different levels of organizations. I wish I'd hear more of that.
Yeah, it's a very real thing. In fact, I saw something on LinkedIn the other day. It was like a new Volvo commercial that had been produced totally through AI. It was very cool. And uh, I heard through someone else that I'd sent it to that, like, I don't know, the scene designers, whatever, in Los Angeles had canceled their internship program and said, don't go into scene design because it's just like not going to exist in that form or fashion anymore. And so there are real implications for this. And in other times in technology, it just meant that like other jobs would be created to be able to do that. But like in the case of like that scene design, it's going to be a lot fewer. And it's, you know, the AI is doing the work for a large part.
Yeah,
Somebody's
yeah.
saying like, do this. So that's just going to be a very different process going forward. And I don't, you know, I have two daughters, 24 and 26, that are in the early parts of their career. Like it's impossible to like know how to advise people.
Yeah.
And all you have is the ability to kind of see what is already being transformed through generative AI or other AI type of capabilities, and what looks promising and what doesn't. So I think in a lot of ways, a lot of industry they'll figure out how to harvest it, and hopefully, you know, people will be augmented by this technology and not replaced.
Yeah.
And that's certainly, you know, how our subject matter experts at the AMA talk about it in regard to physicians. Is it's going to hopefully eliminate a lot of the obstacles that sit between them and their patients. It's not going to replace doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get back to the marketing, the chief experience officer. I love what you're saying about storytelling. And I think sort of what I would like to get back to is principles, because I know you're probably unpeeling the principles, you know, and I think that's what I always loved with Jeff Bezos, the 1997, his letters to the shareholders. Like everyone would want more choice. They want things faster. They want things easier. Can you share a little more about that? That those timeless wisdoms, if they're applicable from your experience in your book.
So much of my timeless wisdom. Here's kind of another thing. Like we talked about how people always kind of jump to product. People always jump to the storytelling platform. I mean, how many times like have you heard in your lifetime, like, I want to do a podcast about, oh, I should write an article. I should start my Instagram feed. It's like, well, hold on. What are we trying to do here? And so again, that's why, you know, storytelling platform in the book, it comes after defining your target having a target definition. What is the proposition of your product? Then you have your brand proposition, your product proposition, before you get into storytelling. And even then, storytelling, it's not like I'm telling, like, you know, Jack got up this morning and went to work and this is what happened in his day. Storytelling is the way that you express your brand proposition across all these digital platforms, and they all work together. And that's the important thing to really understand, is the flow of those things. Because if you're, you know, in today's digital 10-second customer journey world, you only get a matter of seconds to catch somebody's attention. They're not going to read a lot and do a lot of research at the first encounter. The job is to get them to nod. And I talk about that in the book, is like, get the nod, which is like, you see something that you feel like really understands who you are and what you need. And then you're willing to say, I'll learn more, I'll go to your landing page, or I'll do whatever it is. And then you could be out the other end of that process in 10 seconds. That is the part that has to be shaped before you get into like what your social posts are and what are you going to tweet, or what kind of videos I should make and be on YouTube, or, you know, whatever it is. And so that's a carefully planned process. I always say, like, the clock on the 10-second journey starts, you know, really, it's the work is before the clock starts.
I like what you're saying because you're helping me understand this as a non-marketer. That's not formalized with it. I mean, I've done art, I've sold paintings. I like some of that, and my own kind of interest in my prior experience. But what I heard from you is like the art of it, and what I also, there's an art to this marketing and the visceral. It's like, what is it that you can viscerally that nod? I thought that was really a really interesting way that you said it. It's just, how do you do that? And that's, I think it's like a feedback loop. I imagine it's a process. There is some magic going on. And do you do this with your team as you lead them through this? Like, how big of a team is this? Is this agnostic to a team? I mean, you had like Instagram that had a small team to a big organization like a Coca-Cola. How would you engage with a team to try to get them living that essence to kind of share that with their customers?
Yeah, and I think I was asked this question recently before, and I'm like, this applies to whether you're working on your own or you're working for a large company. It's the same principle involved, which is really understanding how to, again, honing in on the target audience in a way that really makes sense and that you're talking to the right person, and then getting that proposition in place. And I tell a story in the book about a very, very non-digital and pivotal moment in my life where I came up with the idea for Gladware plastic containers while basically typing out focus group concept statements. And we just could not seem to get this right. We talked about, that it sealed tightly and that it was, inexpensive, and then you could put it in the dishwasher, and it was like, whatever. And then I just wrote a line on just out of the blue, and I said, it's the containers you'll love to use and can afford to lose. And the moment that we brought that into the focus groups, the people that were in there started telling these stories about how they gave their friend a container at dinner and never got it back. Or I gave, my husband took this, put it in the microwave with tomato sauce, and it got ruined. My kids did this. I got a whole shelf of plastic containers. They're all broken, and the lids are, because they're too expensive to throw away. And what you really saw was how much anxiety there was about their plastic containers. And so to bring them a solution that says, like, here's a container you don't have to worry about. Guess what you see after that? You literally see people nod.
Yeah, I'm nodding.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that moment in time, which was like pre-digital data, but pre a lot of stuff that we have right now, taught me so much, because I'd taken that same approach to everything I've ever worked on, whether it was like in digital media or here. And you go back to what you said first, like the art, like the mission of this organization, and contains the words, the art and science of medicine. Our job is to promote the art and science of medicine. And sometimes I'll say that to people, that marketing is a combination of both. Still has the art of understanding human behavior and what to say to people to get them to move, combined with even more of the science now about data and being able to tell what's actually happening out there. And because of that, there's no more exciting time in history to be in marketing than right now.
Yeah. Well, you're getting me excited. I tell you, this is great. This is awesome. So anyway, I just want to make sure, is there anything that you'd like to take away as we kind of finish off today? Is there any talking points? Please put up your book one more time. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd say I've gotten, it's called the 10-Second Customer Journey, the CXO's playbook for growing and retaining customers in a digital world. What I have been most gratified by, just all the folks who are sending me pictures of getting their book, but mostly people sending pictures of the book with all of the notes that are stuck to the book, with what they're learning and how they're applying it to their business. So if you're looking for a book that really goes through the process of how to build customers and customer relationships today and convert those into paying customers or members or whatever it is, this is the book that will help teach you and your teams how to do that in a really easy way. So you'll get a lot of use out of it, and I encourage you to pick it up today.
Cool. Well, Todd, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything you're doing. And this has been just really great.
It's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you having me today.
Absolutely.